Hi, my name is Kelly Batten.
And I'm Laura McCoy.
And together we're going to teach you about the measurement of length. First of all, length is a term used to describe how long something is. It involves assigning a number to an object such as the length of a crayon. So you would use the length of a crayon, and for example, you would say that it is 3 teddy bears long. Measurement is an important skill to develop in young children because it connects geometry and numbers, and it builds on children's experiences with comparisons. Throughout our time in this course, we've had many practicum and observations experiences where you've probably overheard children comparing things such as, I'm taller than you, or your book is bigger than mine, or your chain is longer than mine. Assigning a number to these comparisons is essential to the mathematical understanding that they'll need as they get older.
So your question should be, how do children learn the skill or the concept of measurement by length? And there's basically 2 points to focus on. They learn naturally by choosing language to discuss their surroundings, and then using that language or terms to communicate with their peers, making sure that what's understood, how they want to measure the length. And also the next focus would be by perception. In other words, what it looks like to them, what they see in their everyday environment. An example is this, as Kelly mentioned in our opening, is that through our practicums, I was in a classroom and a child mentioned that, hey, I'm over here and you're way over there, as they were standing in line. And then the one that made the comments began to count the distance of the line, or measure the distance of the line by using his feet. So a similar statement was made by a kindergarten student who did not begin to use feet or use the terms, I'm way back there and you're up here, but began to point and count using people as a unit to count, as Kelly first demonstrated with the bears. Thing that the teachers should keep in mind when teaching to our little ones, pre-K and K, is to remember to be creative, and remember that units or tools to measure give the children opportunities to compare. Examples of tools and measurements or units would be tape, rulers, a variety of sticks, body parts, even as I mentioned, and as we're going to demonstrate today, use of yarns. You want to also leave room for error or exploration, and not to expect too much of it. Nothing concrete. Measuring length is not to master mathematics or measuring of. Be aware of teachable moments, and throughout the day, building on creating experiences. Also, encourage problem solving, and we're going to give you a demonstration of that today as well. An example of that would be, do we have a long walk to our playground, or do we have a short walk to our playground? And how can we make a racetrack longer so that the car can go from the starting point to the finishing point? So Kelly is going to start off with our first demonstration.
I'm going to teach you a more simplistic introductory lesson that you can teach to younger preschool children, and it's just to introduce them to the concept of length measurement. To do that, first you'll want to choose the correct language. In this case, we're going to keep it simple and just say long and short, and then long, longer, longest. And then you want to choose a familiar unit to measure with. And so we're going to choose teddy bears because it's familiar to all children, usually found in the manipulative center of their classroom. First you want to, or I did, make a template with 3 different sizes of tape, and you can see here I have a long, longer, longest, or a short and a long for this activity. And then you'll want to pre-cut 3 pieces of yarn, the same exact length of your template. And then you're going to encourage the child to find the short piece of yarn and match it to the mat. So they're going to see their yarn, and they're going to have to find out by just looking at it which one's going to be the shorter one. So this is my short one, and I'm going to compare it to see if it matches there. Then I'm going to find the long one. Then I might choose the wrong one. Like Laura said, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to figure it out and problem solve. That one doesn't fit. This one isn't matched. So this is my shortest one, and this is my longest one. Then we're going to take this away, and then we're going to encourage to find the long, longer, and longest one. So same concept. They're going to take the yarn, and they're going to just by looking, determine which one matches with which one to find the long yarn, the longer yarn, and the longest yarn. And then once they master that and have completed that activity, then you're going to use your unit to measure each piece of yarn to determine how long it is. And this is where you're assigning a number to what they're measuring. So in this case, we're going to use the teddy bears, and we are just going to place the teddy bears next to each piece of yarn, just like this. And then we're going to count with the child. The child can count by themselves. If they're having a hard time, after 5, 6, 7, 8, they get tripped up, what number comes next, then you can definitely help them with that. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teddy bears long. So then you might ask them, so is the longer piece of yarn going to need more teddy bears to measure? Continue to measure each piece of yarn to determine if the longer one is truly longer than the first one. By putting the teddy bears down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then you might ask the child, is 11 a bigger number than 9? And it is. So they're putting the number, assigning a number to the length of each piece of yarn.
Hello. A more complex way to measure is to add components or add tools that the child can use that's a little different from what they began with. So what we hear, as Kelly demonstrated, we had short, long, and longer, and then she determined which was the longest out of her group, comparing with the measuring lines. So now we even have one that's even longer, so it's the longest out of the groups. But moving away from the simplistic version, what do we use as units? Something that, again, is familiar to the children in their environment. She used bears, but now we're going to add something a little different. It's cars. We all have cars in our classroom, in our home, of various sorts. And so we're going to assign units. How many cars make this line long? That's a lot of cars. You want to talk to the children as you do so, as you set up. Wow, that's a lot of cars. So that if it took a lot of bears, it's taking a lot of cars, that means that this is a really, really long line. So I think she counted 10 or 11 bears. And so we're going to count here. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So definitely longer. So if we take the cars away, we have assigned units to this long line. Want to move towards, again, something that's familiar in the child's environment is a racetrack. We just made a flat surface version of one, and I'm sure they have fancy ones in their homes as well. But we move away from the line, and here we want to demonstrate more complex is that we still have lines. They're separated, but does this line, or is this line, this long line, as long as this racetrack? So let's see. The question should be going on in their mind. Probably not, because this one's curvy. But we want to demonstrate to them, even though it's a curved line, it's still just as long. So visually, we said in the beginning, it's what they see, what they perceive. So they're seeing, oh, it is just as long. But how do we know? With the same amount of cars that it took to count this, will it go on this? So let's just really do up this racetrack here. Let's use our short line for the starting point. And let's use our longer line for the finish point. And you want to add to it, again, creativity. These are just manicure buffs here. You want to make little flag, and every teacher has Post-it notes you can count. You can cut up into triangles. There's our flag. There you go. There's our, again, a visual for the child. So this is where we start. And on your mark, get ready, start. And we're starting. How many cars? Will all the cars fit in here? that it took the longest line to make. Oops, sorry. Nah, it's not. Is it gonna work? I think it's gonna work. Look, we have room for one more. Wow. So this hoop line is just as long as our straight line. Then we want to add maybe some problem solving in there. What if our finish line was moved and the racetrack line was not long enough? What do? Do the cars just sit there? Do some of them leave? Do they begin to just go around and round in circles? No, they want to make it to the finish line. So they would see that we need to add a piece or to add another form of a unit so that that car can make it to the new mark, the finish line. And just to give an added visual, because they're using yarn as a measuring tool, let's add a piece of yarn. So there we go. That's our more complex or challenging example or demonstration of measurement with length, and I hope this will help you as you teach your kids.